Okay. Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Humbert, and today we're going to be doing Unit 5, Learning Target 2, the notes, which is graphing quadratics. So we're going to take the pieces of stuff that we did yesterday, and we are going to apply it to actually graphing parabolas today. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So for this first one, okay, let's just kind of review what we did yesterday. Okay, so first of all, I want to line up my A, my B, and my C. So my A is always with the squared term. Well, there's no number there, but it's going to be -1. My B is always with the x term, so that's going to be 6. And my C is always my constant. So now when we're talking about opening up or down, remember if your A is positive, it's going to open up. If your A is negative, it's going to open down. So this problem opens down. Then for your axis of symmetry, you're going to have to try and remember that formula. X is equal to opposite of B over 2A. So let's go ahead and let's plug that in. So we're going to do opposite of B over 2 times A. So then we're going to have -6 divided by 2 times -1, which is -2. -6 divided by -2 is a +3. So the x-coordinate of my vertex is going to be a +3. Now I need to find the y-coordinate of my vertex. So to find the y-coordinate, I'm going to take and I'm going to plug in 3 for x. Now here's the tricky part. That negative sign is on the outside of the x. So that means it needs to be on the outside of my squared term. So when I put in a number for x, I only take out the x and I put in parenthesis 3. So I'm taking out the x and putting in parenthesis 3. So this you can plug exactly into your calculator. Now I want you guys to be practicing this on your own to make sure you're getting the right answer. If you're not, let's take a look at it and see what you're plugging in wrong. And so when you put that in your calculator, you end up getting 13. So your vertex then is going to be 3, 13. Oops, that goes down here. I wrote it in the wrong spot. So your vertex is 3, 13. Your axis of symmetry, remember, is the x-coordinate of the vertex, which is 3. Your y-intercept is always your c value, which is 4. So that's what we're going to kind of use today. So let's take a look at how we graph these. So steps for graphing quadratics. So I do want you to write these first steps down. So the first thing you need to do is to find the vertex. Well, this we've already practiced, but I still want you to write the steps down. Find the x-coordinate, and you're going to do that by doing x is equal to opposite of b over 2a. So this is the formula you use to get the x-coordinate of the vertex. Then you're going to plug into the original function and solve to get the y-coordinate. And then you're going to write it as an ordered pair, first x, then y. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time to write it down. Our next step for graphing quadratics would be to make a table. So you're going to start with the vertex. You're going to put the vertex in the middle of the chart or your table. Then you're going to find the other values. I usually go up 2 and I go down 2. So this might not make very much sense right now. It'll make more sense once we start actually graphing it, okay? So don't forget that the graph will open up when a is greater than 0, or you could look at that as positive. A is greater than 0, positive. Oh, it's not writing. Well, you know that means positive. My computer hates me. Okay, and it's going to open down when a is less than 0. So it'll also open down when a is less than 0 or negative. Now let's take a look at actually graphing this out. So there's a couple examples on here. It seems like a long note sheet, but there's really only 4 examples that we have to do. So let's take a look at step number 1. So remember we needed to calculate out the vertex. So let's go ahead and calculate out that vertex. So to calculate out the vertex, we're going to do opposite of b over 2 times a. So then you're going to get opposite of b over 2 times -3, which is -6, and you get 1. So the x-coordinate of my vertex is going to be 1. Well, now I need to get the y-coordinate of my vertex. So to get the y-coordinate of my vertex, what I'm going to do is I am going to plug in 1 for each of those x's. So I get -3 times 1 squared. Plus 6 times 1 plus 4. So then you can plug that into your calculator exactly how I have it written. If you do that exactly, you will always get the right answer. And when you do that, you get 7. So your vertex is at 1, 7. So now we want to make the rest of our table. So what I'm going to do is my x values, I'm going to go up as I go this way, and I'm going to go down as I go this way. So this is going to become 2, 3. This is going to become 0, negative 1. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug these values in. So I'm going to start by plugging in 2. So I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to plug it in for each of those x values above. So I'm going to take x out completely and I'm going to put 2 in instead. And then you can plug that into your calculator exactly as I have it written. Okay, and that's going to give you 4. Now here's the really neat thing about parabolas. We talked about it having that axis of symmetry. So this box right here needs to have the same y value as this box right here. That will always be true. It has to be the same on either side of the vertex. So both of those then are 4. So let's take a look and let's plug in 3. So like we just did, also this value is going to have to be equal to that value. So once we plug in 3, we'll know. So I'm going to take x out completely and I'm going to put 3 in instead. And I'm putting it in as parenthesis 3. So now I want to plug this in. So I have negative 3 and then squared. This should be squared plus 6 times 3 plus 4. And that's going to give me negative 5. So now I have a bunch of points x and y that I can graph. So I'm going to start by graphing the vertex. So that's over 1 up 7 and plotting that point. Through that point, I have the axis of symmetry. So then I'm going to go ahead and plot my next points. So I'm going to have 2 and 4. So I'm going over 2 up 4, plotting that point. And I'm going over 0 up 4 and plotting that point. My next point, I have 3, negative 5, so I'm going over 3, down 5, and plotting that point. And I have negative 1, negative 5, so going left 1, down 5. So I can connect each of those points on either side. And you'll notice I have an upside down parabola, which is good because my A is negative, so it should be opening downward. And notice how it's the same on either side of the axis of symmetry. They're symmetrical. Let's take a look at number 3. So for number 3, first thing we want to do is calculate out the vertex. So we want to do opposite of b over 2a. If you still need to go through and write this part out, a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2, and c is equal to 1. If you still need to write that out, feel free to do that. Okay, so then we're going to do opposite of b over 2 times a. Well, negative 2 divided by 2 times 1 is 2 is going to give me negative 1. So the x-coordinate of my vertex is negative 1, and I put that in the middle of my chart. So now I need to plug in negative 1 for x. So I have y is equal to negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 plus 1. Now I'm going to plug that into my calculator exactly. Negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 plus 1. And that gives me 0. So my vertex is at negative 1, 0. So I'm just going to plot that point. And then I know through my vertex I have an axis of symmetry. So going this way, I'm going to go up. So I'm going to go 0, 1. Going this way, I'm going to go down. So I have negative 2, negative 3. And now I just need to plug in each of those to get my x value. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to plug in negative 1. So I do negative 1 squared. Oops, sorry, I'm going to plug in 0, not negative 1. 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 1. Well, if you plug that into your calculator, you end up getting 1. Now remember, if this guy is 1, this guy also has to be 1 because they need to be symmetrical. We can say that without having to calculate it out. Now let's put that last value in. So I'm just going to put in 1. So I have 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 1. So when you plug that in, you end up getting 4. So each of this value is 4, then this value is 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's continue. Let's move forward, and why don't you plug that in and graph it. Okay, hold on one sec. All right, so once we graph that, we're going to do -1, 0, then -2 up 1 on this side, and then -1, 0, 1 here. Then we go 1 up 4 here, and -3 up 4 here. So then we're going to go up on either side. Okay, let's take a look at another example. So when we do this out, we have our A is equal to 1, our B is equal to -2, and our C is equal to -8. So now we want to calculate this out. We're going to do, for our x-coordinate of our vertex, opposite of B over 2 times A. Well, 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 over 2 is 1. So now I'm just going to make my table. And I have my x-coordinate is 1. And now I'm going to plug in my x-coordinate for each x. So then I get 1 squared minus 2 times 1 plus 8. So when I punch that into my calculator, so we get 1 squared minus 2 times 1 plus 8, and that's going to give you 7. Okay, so this is equal to 7. So now I'm going to go down this way, and I'm going to go up this way. So now I need to plug in my next one. So I'm going to plug in 2 for x now. So then I get 2 squared minus 2 times 2 plus 8, which is going to give me 8. So these ones are 8. Now I want to plug in 3. So I'm just filling out that chart by plugging in the x values. Remember, on either side of the vertex, it needs to be congruent. So then I have 3 squared minus 2 times 3 plus 8, and that's going to give me 11. So this one's probably going to be pretty far off of our graph. So we're going to go 1, 7 for our vertex, and then we have our axis of symmetry going through there. And then here we're going to have 0, 8, and 2, 8. So this is my parabola way up here going off the graph. Okay, as long as you have 3 points, you can pretty much always graph a parabola. Let's get that last one started, and then I want you to finish it up on your own. Okay, so let's at least calculate out the vertex. Well, my A is equal to -3. My B is equal to 0, and my C is equal to 0 because those terms don't exist on there. So to get the vertex, I'm going to do opposite of B, which is just going to be 0, over 2A. Well, 0 divided by -6 is going to be 0. So the x-coordinate of my vertex is going to be 0. Now let me get the y-coordinate. So all I'm going to do is plug in 0 for x. So that's going to give me 0. So my vertex is actually at the origin, 0, 0. So through that vertex, I have that axis of symmetry. Well, we need to go up this way and down this way. So what I want you to do is finish filling out this chart and then go ahead and graph the parabola. If you're stuck on it, bring it up front and let's do it together. So that concludes your note video today. Thanks for listening.